Knon 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
And good afternoon and welcome to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with my loyal generals, and congratulations on your
we're generals. We were majors last week.
I know.
We got a promotion.
Promotion.
Awesome.
My two generals, the late Patti Fink and Lerone Landis. End of the year, we're going to do a news wrap-up.
We're just going to throw some stuff out
just
there randomly.
Let's randomly throw some stuff out there. Big story of the year.
Biggest story of the year is
marriage equality.
Marriage equality.
Yeah.
Started the year, depends on how you count, because there were a bunch of rulings at the very beginning or at the end of last year that made several states marriage equality states, but only temporarily. There were stays in between, so Utah, do you count it or not? Because beginning of last year, you could get married in Utah. A stay was put on their marriage equality, and it wasn't until October that it became a full marriage equality state. So the numbers that we came up with, beginning of the year, there were 18 marriage equality states, and as of next week, there are 36. As of right now, there are 35. But again, it's how you count.
But even the 36 is still in limbo.
Well, here's how a couple of them stand. Missouri is funny because there was a ruling.
Missouri's always funny.
But it's a funny state.
It is.
Well, there was a ruling, but it was ruled that, that ruling only applies to St. Louis. So right now, St. Louis has full marriage equality. There was another ruling that said the state had to recognize marriages performed in other states. And whether or not that one is being appealed, it is being honored.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't get married in the rest of the state. The other one that I really enjoy, and according to Ken Upton, the attorney with Lambda Legal here locally, Kansas is going to owe a lot of people a lot of money. Kansas was ordered to let people get married.
Yep.
It's a marriage equality state, so what do? You go to your county courthouse and you take out a marriage license. Well, some county clerks are still not issuing those licenses and others are. But the state itself is not recognizing those marriage licenses.
Their own marriages.
Well, all they were ordered to do was to let people get married, and they are. They are not allowing anything that flows from taking out. That would be like, okay, I'll let you buy a hunting license, but I'm not going to let you go hunting.
I can still arrest you if you go hunting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the equivalent. And this idea that, I'm a county clerk, it's my religious belief is that you don't go hunting for sport. So I'm not going to issue, I know I'm the one in my county that issues marriage licenses, but I'm not going to issue them because it's my religious belief not to. Well, then probably I'd be in the wrong job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just for record, I heard someone explain this to me. I thought it was a great definition. It's only a sport if everybody involved knows they're playing.
And that's part of what's causing the limbo in Florida, which is going to keep it from becoming the official 36th state. On January 6th, supposedly same-sex couples can get married, but over 40-something clerks have said that they will not issue or sign marriage licenses to same-sex couples, even though the Supreme Court has pretty much said no to.
Not pretty much. That was a 7-2 decision.
Yes.
That's more than pretty much.
That was pretty much. So I don't know what. Now they have filed a lawsuit saying they want further clarification. What more clarification do you need, or how much more clarification can you get?
Here's the clarification they want. The Supreme Court says you'll do it,
Right.
and if you don't, you're going to get sued and removed from office. That's the clarification that apparently they need.
I guess so.
And you will be held financially responsible, and you could serve some prison time. Is it clear?
That's in contempt of the United States Supreme
I
Court.
think they should
resign.
I don't know about prison time, but I think they should absolutely lose their jobs.
Why not prison time? When you're sworn to do your job, and you have a public job, and you don't do it,
Removed from office.
Explain to me why no prison time should be threatened there.
Well, I just think you should be fired or removed.
I think they need to be held to a higher standard.
Either if they're held financially accountable, then that's
that too.
That's essentially.
I mean,
there's a variety of options there.
I was a court clerk. Now I can say it. I don't work there anymore. If I didn't do my job, I just got removed.
Well, there are certain things. It's not just if you didn't do your job. I'm talking about if you're not doing your job, that's one thing. If you're not doing your job in defiance of a Supreme Court order, you don't think that you should be held to a higher standard. If you didn't do something in your position, and it wasn't willful, but very often you have a job and you're not doing something and you're fired for it, right?
Absolutely.
It wasn't willful, and it was a mistake. People make mistakes, but sometimes you're held to account. Other people, like these 40-some-odd clerks, are being defiant of the Supreme Court. Well, we need better explanation of that, or we're not going to uphold that decision.
That means you in Broward County. That means you in Dade County. That means you in... I guess that's what they're looking for.
I don't know what they're looking for. They clearly just don't want to do it, and they just need to be removed.
Because they're not doing their jobs.
Exactly.
Okay, well, this story was a huge story. The tipping point came in October. What happened in October?
The Supreme Court didn't make a decision.
But they did make a decision.
By not making a decision, they made a huge decision.
That is a decision. And what was the decision that they didn't make?
The decision was they decided not to hear the appeals to, 2 of the federal cases? Five. Mm-hmm. And so leaving in place those federal rulings, which said that.
But that's a decision. When the Supreme Court says we're not going to hear that case, while they're not deciding on the merits of those cases, what they are saying is there's nothing about these cases that's urgent enough for us to hear them, so therefore what that lower court is saying should stand. Mm-hmm. And it was very clear what those lower courts were standing for, what they were saying. I mean, those decisions, one of them, the Utah decision, took Scalia's words and threw him back in his face. I mean, it was probably, it ranks up there as one of the snottiest appeals court decisions ever handed down.
Well, it's quite often, doing nothing is an option everybody has in life. Option A, option B, option C, and there's always option don't do anything. And in this particular case, it had ramifications because those appeals have nowhere to go then. If the Supreme Court's not going to take them, they stand. And I thought it was quite brilliant, actually.
I did too. I mean, now we're left with, 14, 15 states that don't have marriage equality.
As of January 6th, 14 states.
And
Texas, of course, is one
of them. I just think it's going to be really, really, I can't fathom when the Supreme Court does take a case. They'll probably more than likely take the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, their case, because they did not rule in our favor.
6 cases.
Yes.
There are 6 cases that are appealed from the Sixth Circuit. And on January 9th, the Supreme Court has its next meeting to decide
Conference.
their next
Right.
conference, which are the next cases we'll take.
Right.
6 cases have been appealed from the Sixth Circuit. Sixth
One from
Circuit.
the 5th.
One from the
Louisiana.
5th skipped the Fifth Circuit and went directly. So there's a
directly.
Louisiana case. There are 6 cases from the Sixth Circuit. And they can decide, okay, well, now that there's a difference in opinion among the circuits, do we have to decide?
I think they will, and I would be really shocked if they would turn over what they have now created, which is, again, there's 35 or 36 states that allow marriage equality. I just don't see them.
Well, they didn't really create all those. I mean, some of them.
They didn't.
The
Well,
the
true.
original, say 10 or so, came,
Right,
came
right.
about different circumstances, but kind of on
To
their
get
own.
right. But to get up to that high number, that was absolutely their doing.
And what's really crazy is January 9th at 9 a.m. at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans will be a hearing on the oral arguments
The
from
Texas
both
case.
sides on the Louisiana case at 9 o'clock. Then at 10 o'clock will be Mississippi, and 11 o'clock will be Texas. But at 9 o'clock, Louisiana, the case that's now been appealed directly to the Supreme Court, will be heard by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals at the same
2
time.
different cases.
2 different cases.
Those are
okay.
2 different cases.
Yeah.
But a case in Louisiana then will be heard
Yeah.
at the same time a case in Louisiana is being heard by the Supreme Court.
The one we lost, it went right to the Supreme Court. The one that we won, the state appealed to the Fifth Circuit.
Right.
Okay, well that'll be very interesting.
But 2 Louisiana cases at the same time. Okay, now, why is the Fifth Circuit hearing these cases now, or on that date? Do you think?
I think because they're ripe, in terms of legal readiness, and I think it's great that they're being heard back to back. Because we're planning to go. Eric can get off work. We're going to be there.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
Hear the oral arguments and.
I think the
Oral.
cases are beyond ripe. I mean, they took a long time to set this up. This has been lingering since last summer.
And here's what Ken Upton thinks. If the Supreme Court takes one of those cases that have been referred, the Fifth Circuit, which will have heard, that same day is hearing those cases, and by the time they're hearing them, we will not know whether the Supreme Court has decided to hear one of these cases. So they'll hear the oral arguments. What he thinks is, if the Supreme Court decides to take one of those cases, the Fifth Circuit just won't issue a ruling, because
Right.
they can take any amount of time to issue
Right.
their
They
ruling.
can.
We've gotten used to them coming out, like this, one right after the other. Some of them came out within a week. Even the ones that dragged their feet, it was within a month, which are very quick decisions for an appeals court. The Fifth Circuit doesn't have a timetable to issue their ruling, and so they can either, very conservative court, they can either go against what the Supreme Court eventually rules, and these justices aren't stupid. They, first of all, don't want it kind of on their record that they were overturned. And why issue something that the Supreme Court's just going to issue something different? The only reason they would issue something and issue it quickly and issue against is so that they can get their input into one of the cases that they're hearing at the Supreme Court and say, okay, I know you need more reasons. Here's how we put our input into it.
Well, and I don't necessarily think that they'll make a ruling. They may very well just avoid Louisiana and let the Supreme Court address that, since a Louisiana case is going to be before in the conference. It's not really a hearing; it's a conference where they
Right.
decide. They talk amongst themselves, and no clerks or anybody's there. Just the 9 justices decide whether to take it or not. But the Fifth Circuit, I think, may feel compelled to make rulings in Mississippi and Texas, because those aren't directly before the court. Marriage in Louisiana is, but not in Texas. And I kind of hope that they do make a ruling in Texas, on the Texas case, one way or the other, so that we don't have to go through what a lot of these other states have gone through: yes, no, yes, no, yes,
Yeah.
no, and fight, like Idaho, like, well, you didn't hear our law, or all those other states that are in the same circuit as a court, as a case that won marriage equality. They said, well, you didn't hear our particular law, even though they're all kind of pretty much the same. We've heard these arguments before, and they failed. You know, I don't want Texas to linger, but that may be their strategy to be number 50. So,
Well, Idaho has marriage equality right now.
yeah, they do.
So they just want it taken away. Well, just because you lost doesn't mean you don't continue fighting, does it?
Right.
So they'll
That's
just
the
continue. Most of the states where marriage equality has been accepted or has been imposed have actually adapted to marriage equality very easily. One of the big surprises to me is Oklahoma. A few people
A
like,
shocker, actually.
well, a few people you would think State Rep Sally Kern. I was watching the news for several days, and in Oklahoma, Sally Kern, State Representative Sally Kern's head exploded. It didn't happen.
But our
Well-
governor's head almost exploded.
yeah.
She really showed her butt.
She did.
She really did.
And I suspect
mean,
Sally
she-
Kern is like
Yeah.
wearing a ball gag tied up in a
In a
back
closet,
closet
somewhere.
where so they're saying no, you can't speak until you calm down, and she's just not calmed down yet.
I think in Oklahoma, the governor and a few others also kind of stomped their feet and had a little tantrum and got it out. And it's like, okay, well, I got it out. And
Appeal to their base.
and let me go on. There's nothing else I can do about it.
But I haven't heard anything like protesters disrupting marriage ceremonies, or
Oh, no.
you haven't heard a whole lot of cases of, well, I'm the straight florist in town and I'm not going to do the flowers for your wedding here. You've heard that in other places. You really haven't heard it in Oklahoma. I think part of it is they've actually had same-sex marriage in Oklahoma for more than a year on some of the Indian reservations, and they continue to do fine, and nothing bad happened there. They even found out when one couple wanted to marry on one reservation, the county, which was the reservation in that case, said, oh yeah, we've done several of those already over the last couple of years. And by the way, it's nobody's business because it's private, it's personal, and nothing. So Oklahoma, in a funny way, kind of eased into it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. A couple of other states that kind of went kicking and screaming, really up in Idaho. Other than the governor, well, you haven't heard our case because
Yeah.
our marriage law is completely different, even though it's the exact same wording as 25 other marriage laws. But you haven't heard ours.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing much happened up there. It just kind of happened.
I'm looking at they have a really nice breakdown of the current state of same-sex marriage globally on the Huffington Post. On CNN. And just real quick, how many countries worldwide have same-sex marriage? You have to name them.
It's something like 15.
Yeah.
Very
maybe
close.
15,
Very close.
14.
17.
17.
Yeah.
Just last week, Wales became the next to last part. All of the British, all of the island that
Isles.
that the island that England is on, it now has marriage equality throughout.
Right.
Northern Ireland, which is part of Great Britain, doesn't. That's
Right.
what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Ireland might be the next country with marriage equality.
Right, they're going to vote on it in May.
And there's an Asian country where it's up for vote. It would be what country is it?
North Korea.
Bingo. No, I forgot. So if I find it, I'll tell you. But I saw that in the news.
And what I think is interesting, too, is that we were talking about St. Louis, and St. Louis has been sort of the hub of a lot of interest this year. So St. Louis County has marriage equality. They also have Ferguson, which has been in the news greatly this year, and still is. And they also had Michael Sam.
They also have Michael Sam, which we will
We'll
talk
talk about when we come back. You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink. We'll be back with more right after this.
This is Jake Winters from Leicester, England, and I listen to Lambda Weekly on Knon 89.3 FM.
And this is Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with the late Patti Fink and the early Lerone Landis. Times are
Very
very
early,
entertaining.
yes. The highly regarded Columbia Journalism Review has released their worst journalism of 2014 list. The list includes many individual stories and big-name publications like the Rolling Stone and, of course, Fox News. But also making the list were some individuals, and CNN's openly gay anchor Don Lemon made the list. They say that his missteps in journalism this year is why he made the list, and some of the stuff that he said was like, when they were talking about the Bill Cosby controversy, he said to one of the women who was alleging some sexual misconduct that there are ways not to perform oral sex if you don't want to do so. So Don Lemon said that. He also said that the anchor, when they were talking about the Malaysia Airlines that disappeared, he suggested that it was maybe sucked up by a black hole. And while he was reporting the Ferguson protest, he commented, obviously there's a smell of marijuana in the air. So, I mean, and I adore Don Lemon. I do. I like him, and I read his biography, but he does put his foot in his mouth at times.
And even in Ferguson, at one point, he kept saying that it was Michael Brown's father who incited a riot. And I'm like, no, it's a stepfather.
Exactly, it's a stepfather.
Father is, against all kinds of violence, any kind of violence.
Right, absolutely.
And it's like, get it right, dude. 'Cause I mean, they're two different people.
They are, very much so, yeah.
I don't know.
So far, there's been no response from Don on this dubious honor.
Oh, CNN controls its publicity and its journalists. I interviewed Don Lemon this year, and it was with their department on the line with us.
Yeah.
And several times I'm sorry, he can't answer that question.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Huh.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. Congrats to trans author and activist Janet Mock. She just landed her own TV show on MSNBC. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. I didn't know that.
Yeah. The first show aired last week, so we missed that, but it's new. So good for her. Congratulations.
When did do you have her times?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
I'll find it.
And she just got engaged to her photographer boyfriend, Aaron Treadwell. They've been dating for the past 5 years. So congratulations to her.
Oh, definitely.
So far, no announcement of a wedding date. And last, this is one of the biggest stories of the year, Michael Sam. One of the biggest coming out stories, one of the biggest sports stories. Just one of the biggest stories in general is Michael Sam. Now, in case you've missed a documentary about Michael Sam's journey to become the first openly gay football player to be drafted into the NFL on OWN last night, check your listings. They will repeat it. And it's worth a watch. In the movie, he discusses not only why he came out, which I never heard really why he came out.
With the interview with Oprah?
Yes,
okay.
yeah. And why he came out the way that he did. And he talks about how when he was in the NFL for the short time that he was, how other current gay players, or closeted, of course, have reached out to him. So he did confirm there are some. Of course, he wouldn't name any names, and he shouldn't have. But it was a really, really good watch. I encourage you to watch it. If you still are one of these people who, and there are a few of them out there, say, oh, the reason why he's not playing is because he just wasn't good enough. BS. BS. Because one of the things that they pointed out was that he was the defensive player of the year. I think they said since 1995 or 1996 or something. All defensive players of the year and co-defensive players of the year have landed a spot on a team or at least a practice team. Michael Sam is not on either. Don't tell me it's because he's not talented.
And I'd love to see Dale Hansen bring him on his segment locally and do an interview.
I'm surprised Dale Hansen hasn't done a Michael Sam interview.
He's been here. They've
But
met.
I'm surprised, but I'm also not, because Dallas Voice, we named him Person of the Year locally because he lives here locally and had a huge impact nationally. Michael Sam is not doing those local interviews, period.
Wow.
I mean, we couldn't get him to return several emails.
And when you see this, you kind of understand why.
Oh, we sent him several emails with several questions, and they were innocuous questions. They were not the kind of questions, are you angry at the NFL, and do you think there's a bunch of homophobia? It wasn't that. They were personal and, just about himself and that kind of thing.
Well, here's what I think straight up happened. He held out for Oprah. And now that he's done the big interview, he'll maybe,
He
because
might.
if you
I
knew you were
hope
going to
so.
do Oprah, why would you undercut Oprah by giving another?
Oh, he
interview?
definitely knew he was doing Oprah.
And I get that.
That's like being
yeah.
interviewed by Barbara Walters or something.
Yeah.
Like you don't give it all away before you have that big interview. So.
And here's where he's wrong on that. You go on Oprah cold, you don't do a good job. You warm up by doing some local ones. You
Yeah.
just do. You just
Good
do.
point.
Yeah.
So, I don't get it, but it's not him as far as that. It is his publicist
And his,
who is acting as a
you
brick
got to
wall.
you got to see this because there's a really interesting point where he and his publicist clash on the documentary. I'm telling you, you should watch it. I think it'll give us
Is
maybe
it a
answer.
documentary? You said a movie earlier, but
Yeah, it's a
documentary.
documentary movie, owned, produced. So it was an hour and a half long, the documentary, and then there was a 30-minute interview with Oprah afterwards.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so
I'll be
definitely-
looking at that. Our recording of it messed up while we were away at Christmas, and
Oh,
we were
really?
upset by that.
I'm looking up
Grr.
on MSNBC's website, and I can't find when Janet Mock's show is.
Oh, okay.
There's no schedule.
Maybe they just had a premiere and not, but definitely has a show
Yeah,
now.
and I went to Janet Mock's website, and it just says watch for her on MSNBC. It
Oh.
doesn't have a time. So
Okay, all right.
that could have just been a preview.
It could have been. It
Yeah,
could have been. And one of the other biggest entertainment news stories of the year was the loss of Joan Rivers.
Oh, a number of people that we lost, but yeah, that for the gay community especially.
That was big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was big. What was her official cause of death?
I think she,
I mean, I know she went in for a throat procedure.
It had to do with the anesthesia.
Okay,
she
and
lost
she
oxygen.
lost conscience during the procedure. They were able to revive her?
No, I don't
No.
think they were.
They weren't.
No.
Okay.
And a couple other things, entertainment-wise, that happened through the year. Jodie Foster and Alexandra Hedison married.
Mhm.
Melissa Etheridge and Linda Wallem married. So those are two big ones.
Those are big. Well, I'm smiling at me.
Jodie
Because
Foster was before
Okay,
the
before
show.
the show, David asked the question, what were some of the biggest coming outs of the year? And he said Jodie Foster, and I said biggest, surprising.
Yeah, and I
No,
said,
but that
I
didn't
said
happen
Jodie-
this year.
It happens every year. How?
No, wait, I thought it
When
did
was
happen
the-
this year.
when was
No,
the
it's
first
Golden
time we
Globes.
the
reported?
Golden Globes
last
of this
year.
year?
When was
No,
the
it
first
was
time?
last year.
When was the first time we reported Jodie Foster being gay? 20 years ago, and we've been reporting Jodie Foster coming out every year since then. This should not be any different.
It was
she
last
got
year.
she
Oh, yeah,
got
okay.
married, but she got married, so therefore there she's coming out officially.
Okay, I thought it was the Golden Globes for the 2013 season,
No,
but
it's
it was
a
aired in
year
20...
ago, January.
Okay, well, you know more about Jodie
2013.
Foster than I do, so I'll take your word for it. But I thought it was this year.
No.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
That's
then
not
they-
why I was saying that was one of the biggest coming outs of the year.
Okay.
She got married this year, so now for people who are still, well, but Jodie Foster's never really come out.
Well, now she has.
Well, Lily Tomlin and Jane Wagner got married again. Married, period.
Officially,
this
yeah.
year.
Yeah, they did.
Another kind of big thing was, of course, Stephen Colbert wrapped up his show. He's
He
going to be
did.
coming back in May in the time slot that David Letterman had on CBS. And then, of course, we had just, I think, an amazing level, for the first time I've seen, an amazing level of visibility for the intersex community and in particular for the trans community. It's
yeah,
been
that's what I said.
It's
too.
been a bumper crop of great stuff for the trans community this year in terms of national visibility in major media.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a fantastic move, for our trans and intersex sisters and brothers.
And one of those was Laverne Cox's appearance on Time magazine front cover.
Yeah,
that was huge.
that was a big
That was
deal.
huge.
And then something else that that happened along those lines this year was Facebook opened up its whole gender status. You could basically pick anything, and then we began the year with the whole Sochi Winter Olympics. Remember that?
Yep.
And then
And-
subsequently,
and
Russia
talk-
passed the anti-gay adoption ban. as well.
Yeah, and that was the problem with Sochi. I mean, it was kind of a who cares until several things happened. First of all, who President Obama sent for the opening and closing.
Right.
He made sure there were 2 gay people in the delegation for the opening, 2 for the closing, including Billie Jean King and several other former Olympic athletes. And that was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
But it was to make a statement about how we feel about those anti-gay laws being passed in Russia, so,
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
which
Then-
did get passed.
Another big, I guess, in memoriam, so to speak, was Fred Phelps passed away this year.
Yep.
Westboro Baptist Church villain, Fred Phelps.
And
A number of losses this year.
And unfortunately, I thought particularly that will probably be the demise of his little clan, but it is not.
Oh, he hasn't
There's-
run it in years.
They're still active.
Well, and then the rumors were that he was excommunicated from his own family and organization and church because he wasn't harsh enough on LGBT people.
Wow.
You know, he
Wow.
didn't. He was trying to dial it back. And speaking of dialing it back, Chick-fil-A's CEO this year, Dan Cathy, chose to dial it back to silence on social issues, including LGBT issues.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't think it really has a place in commerce unless you're supporting. I think it's a place for hate that doesn't belong anywhere. But I think if you're going to be inclusive and be proud about that. But I think you should, bow out in shame if you're not, and if you're vehemently not. And I think Chick-fil-A will continue to be on the bad list for LGBT people going forward, and those who support us. I don't think we should be
still
eating at
refuse to eat
Chick-fil-A
there.
because they do continue to give money and fund in a major portion of the hate. In
They
this
just
country.
decided not to be vocal about it, which, I mean, I think it's a good marketing move for them, because most people where this issue is not at the head of their radar, but when they're hearing that the hate's spouted, I don't want to eat there. But if they're not hearing it, I like Chick-fil-A. And people will go there. So I think it's a smart marketing move on their part.
Sure, but you can get a chicken sandwich with one pickle other places.
I'm not encouraging people to go there. I'm saying it's a good move. Other people won't rally around them. They're going to continue doing business. Let them.
Sure.
On the opposite side of that, Cracker Barrel, and I think Cracker Barrel's a good example, but I think the damage is done with Chick-fil-A, that even if they change their policies, most people won't start eating there. Good example is Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel right now gets a 30, I think, on the HRC list of Corporate Equality Index list. In 30 you wouldn't think of as being very good, but they were at 0. And
There's been a documentary about their anti-LGBT policies and practices.
I mean, their policies were if they found out that you were gay and you were a waiter, you were fired, period.
Mhm.
They've stopped that. I mean, that 30 rating indicates they have a non-discrimination policy in place, but it's more than that if they have 30. And I haven't looked up exactly what they do have. But they've gotten rid of those bad policies. We asked them to stop, and they did. They're not giving partner benefits. They certainly are not trans-inclusive. There's certainly none of that other stuff. But I consider that one to be a victory. I really do. When you have people who are so anti that they find out that you're a waiter in a restaurant and you're gay, I mean, how likely is it that you're going to find a gay waiter in a restaurant? Very. But they're firing people for that, and they've changed their policy. I do consider that a victory when some of the most rabid have backed away from those kinds of policies.
I still don't eat there.
Well,
I don't either.
and that's the thing. That's what I'm
There are
saying.
better places on the road,
That's what I'm saying with Chick-fil-A. I think the damage is already done, because most people, you think of Cracker Barrel and you think, no.
I in a weird way, I almost appreciate them being vocal about their anti-gay thoughts, because
Let the bigots show themselves.
let them show themselves. Because if you're just being quiet about it, you're still doing it, and I'm giving you money to your establishment, then when I do find out, it's like, oh, you got me. So let them get, if that's what they're doing, if they're still donating to anti-gay campaigns or measures to be passed, let them be vocal about it. I want to know. Otherwise, you'd have to go dig to find out, and who does that? So.
Well, some of us do.
I forgot the one who subscribes to
Everything.
right-wing. Yeah.
Most of us are not that.
I don't have the time.
But speaking of license to discriminate, we have to remember in this year, Jan Brewer, governor of Arizona, who, by the way, when she said, I'm not going to run again, she couldn't.
You couldn't run anymore.
She's term limited. But she shut down the whole license to discriminate law in Arizona that by using a veto.
Yeah, under intense pressure.
Intense pressure.
I mean,
yes.
serious intense pressure.
And we're about to have that battle in Texas.
Yes, we are.
Where they want to put it in the Constitution.
Do you think, though, and let's be fair and open-minded about somebody who's not a very nice person.
Not at all.
Do you think that she herself actually thought, she was under pressure, she could have done anything, she's a lame duck. So she can do what she really believes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that she saw the arguments against and said, this is just not good for my state?
No.
This is going too far.
I think she did it for her own political expediency, because I think she wants to be considered for higher office at some point, either United States Senate when McCain retires. She might run, or she might want to be out there for vice president, let's be honest, money talks, and there are a lot of huge corporations threatening to pull their business. One in particular, huge, the NFL. NFL has their Super Bowl in Arizona like every other 2 or 3 years. So they were threatening to no, we can't have this, which surprises me. I guess the NFL is weird. They really came to bat for us, so something like that. And it helped, but then they won't bring on a gay guy to play. I don't know. Really, but see,
really
there's
weird.
the NFL, and then there are the components of it.
Yeah.
There's the owners and the players,
right.
the teams.
Because apparently,
so the NFL is an organization, I think, is very good. It's the component parts.
Apparently, when Michael Sam was cut from St. Louis, somebody from the NFL got on the phone with every team owner pleading with them to find a place for Michael Sam. Apparently, they really went to bat for him because they knew how bad it looked.
Right.
That somebody in his position. And I think Jerry Jones had the position open, saw somebody who really was a good player. He wasn't giving charity to anybody.
No.
And put him on the practice squad.
He did.
It didn't affect the team one way or the other.
No.
It was just, and got a lot of positive publicity as a result. But in order to get that position for him, the NFL went to bat.
And they did also concerning Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's, again, my question. What I said was, do you think that Jan Brewer either herself felt, no, this is going too far, or thought it just wasn't good for the state? And I think what you're saying is she looked at it and said, this really isn't good for the state.
Or me.
Or me. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes politicians do what's best for themselves. Sometimes their positions are their positions not because they're just such firmly held beliefs or they care one way or the other about an issue, but this will be good for me to support.
But you know what? I'm okay. I'm okay with somebody doing the right thing for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And that's how that might have come out. We need to take a break. You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with, I almost said the late Lerone Landis, and the always on-time Patti Fink.
This is Janice McCall from TCU, and I listen to the Lambda Week on 89.3 KNON FM, Dallas.
And this is Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink. Patti was going through her list of big stories of the year.
Yep. I was just talking about what's happened at the federal level. The Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, released a document in June, 1 year since the Windsor decision in 2013, talking about the expansion of marriage equality rights throughout the federal government, and everything from taxes to, every expanse to military. I mean, it's wide-reaching stuff where the federal government changed their policies to comply with the ruling.
The other Eric Holder thing, speaking of him, you mentioned the expansion of transgender visibility, and here's where transgender rights were expanded this year. Just a couple of weeks ago, Eric Holder issued guidance. He wrote a letter, basically, and In it, he expanded Title 9, Title 7.
Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yeah.
To
and
include trans protections under gender. That's been proven in court. In fact, the federal government had to defend itself and lost a discrimination case based on gender that it affected a trans person. So I think that's huge.
It was huge.
And then, of course, President Obama signed an executive order banning anti-LGBT discrimination among federal contractors, which was huge.
which locally where that affects is ExxonMobil does $17 billion worth of something like 17, 12 billion, somewhere. It's in the billions of business with the federal government. Now, ExxonMobil has had in their employee manual non-discrimination. They have it in some places where they can't be held legally liable for it. They've also started issuing or giving partner benefits, and they put that into place a year ago, October, to go into effect January 1st this year. The one place where they haven't put it is in their EEO statement.
Yep.
So that they can still, if you work for ExxonMobil, you can say, I'd like my partner on my policy, and they can say, we would be happy to put him on your policy. Unfortunately, you're fired, because they don't have non-discrimination. Now, have they done that? No. They're really a company that takes your personal life and wants it out of the workplace. I know lots of people who work for Exxon. It's just, that's the corporate culture there. But the other part of the corporate culture is our volume of business is larger than the gross domestic product of most countries in this world, and nobody's going to tell us what to do. So until we have to, we're not putting the EEO statement in. Now they have to.
Well, and what's interesting, too, is in 2014, for the first time in many, many years, Apple Computers, surpassed them in being the number one biggest, and Walmart, the number one biggest company.
Yeah.
In the world.
And their
that's by
CEO
sales.
is?
I was going to say, we didn't mention that. Tim Cook. That's a big out this year.
Yeah.
Big coming out. Well,
See, and Exxon, if they want to become number one, they better hire a gay CEO. Or lesbian.
Or have them come
transgender.
out. To have the existing one come out.
Have you seen that slob? Not going to happen. They need to hire one.
Gotcha. I hear you. Well, the other federal thing was the FDA has sort of lifted the ban on gay male donors giving blood, sort of.
because I thought they were just reviewing it.
No,
As a matter of fact, I thought
the
they came to a
decision came out this
decision,
week.
and then again they went back to the drawing board this week.
Okay, so how much do
Nope,
you think
they're
that
done.
will increase the blood supply?
They should just, it won't increase it till they lift the ban. They didn't really lift
I
the
think
ban.
this change in policy will increase the blood supply by 0. Because what the new policy is if you're a gay male, but you've been celibate for a year, then you can donate. Is there any purpose in that? No, because they test
Doesn't
the
accomplish
blood.
anything.
They test the blood.
And it doesn't even talk to the fact that heterosexual people are probably as much or more likely to introduce HIV into the blood supply as LGBT people. It's such an insane thing to say. Well, because you're gay, you're at risk.
Right.
But in today's world, we know that HIV is far out there in every community.
I mean, HIV is never discriminated
It
against
hasn't.
anybody.
It hasn't.
So I've never understood the ban. Never.
It's like when they were talking about banning foster care and adoption.
Yeah.
In Texas, is saying, oh well, we're going to put on the application if you're homosexual, then you automatically cannot be a foster parent or adopt a child, and if you're heterosexual, you're automatically qualified
You're automatically.
to adopt. I mean, that's insane. It's
Because
absolutely insane.
It's insane because the reason why we have foster care for children are because of heterosexual parents who didn't take care of them for whatever reason, so they ended up in foster
Predominantly, yeah.
care. Well, I would almost say 100%. I don't know any gay parents whose kids ended up in foster care. I mean,
what's her name? A comedian.
Oh yes, but she got them back.
She did get
She
them
did
back.
get
They
them
proved-
back.
They were proved wrong.
Yes.
Paula Poundstone?
Paula
Paula
Poundstone. But look how hard we had to think. And you know what? She didn't do anything to the kids. It was something that she was going through, and again, it was proven wrong, and she got them back.
Yes.
But It's so rare that
It's
happens.
minute.
It's,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing with the foster system is if you've ever tried to become a foster parent, you go through rigorous screening. And
You do.
What neither of you were saying is that every gay person should be a foster parent and every straight parent should be under scrutiny. No.
No.
If you're going to be a foster parent,
It's a
there is
case-by-case
so much.
thing.
Of course it is.
Exactly.
And to say that
Exactly.
you can or can't because of certain characteristics that are innate is ridiculous.
And the FDA banned to say, well, gay people are going to be scrutinized more. Well, freaking scrutinize straight people.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
But again,
it's
the,
just nuts.
the main reason why it never made sense to me is because they test the blood.
yeah,
Well,
They
exactly.
test the
what they-
blood anyway.
What they've ignored is
Science.
instead of asking, well, science, but are you gay? Yes. Okay, you can't give blood. Instead of, are you in a monogamous relationship? That's never been asked. It's not asked of straight people,
Mhm.
and it's ignored with gay people. So
Yep.
they assume you're a liar if you're gay. They assume you're monogamous if you're straight,
Right.
which that in itself endangers the blood supply more than anything. But in truth, what they need to do is just test the blood,
Which
Yeah.
they do.
which they do.
And I know a lot of gay men who would love to give blood, and when they've gone, like if their company has like a blood drive and they all go, they don't lie. They say I'm gay, and then of course they get excused. They don't get anything. But it's like I could lie. There's probably a lot of
Right.
straight people that have HIV that are lying.
Oh, absolutely.
You know.
And what they're doing also by having these company blood drives is you might work for a company that does not have non-discrimination policies, and you have to out yourself then.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
That's
the best thing to
rough.
do in those cases is just to say, I'm sorry, I can't give blood.
Right.
For a variety of medical reasons.
Yep.
Then your company can't ask you
Yeah.
what the problem is, but your
That's
company,
HIPAA.
but your company's going to start looking at you a little bit strange then. More on your list?
Michelle Bachman's going to leave. That's a big one.
Yeah, that is.
Um,
Except the nut who's coming in behind her, I'm worried about because while he's as extreme as she is, he doesn't seem to be quite as stupid.
That just means it'll be less entertaining and more dangerous.
That's
Right,
exactly what
yeah.
I'm saying.
Yep.
He could be a very dangerous member of Congress to watch for.
Also this year, because of we were speaking of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that's a bugaboo problem this year. And the reason that LGBT organizations across the country, every major one, kind of ditched their support of ENDA. It wasn't making it through either chamber, well under its current form either, but it was going to give a huge religious exception. Which kind of segues into like stuff that's going on in Plano, stuff that we kind of, I think it's kind of interesting that Plano's got such a problem because it's bad. It's not good. Let's just face it, people. It's not a fully inclusive non-discrimination ordinance. And at the same time in Dallas, we've made so many advances this year. We did the Dallas Equality Resolution. We've already enacted just in 2014, since that passed in the February and March.
A number
We've
of
done so
policy
much.
changes, like
Yeah.
FMLA expanding that in the city, and it'll be voted on in the county also, extending those benefits so that you can take off when a spouse is ill. That's huge.
We've gotten our state legislative agenda. We've gotten which is about to, unfold,
Mhm.
I guess, with the coming in January. We've done stuff with pensions. We're trying to move pension issues forward. We're working with the city to be more trans inclusive in terms of healthcare coverage. There's just a lot going. We're changing language to correct some of those things. An employment policy for the city, and also the ordinance to clarify its trans inclusiveness.
Well, and non-discrimination was voted on to
It-
go into the city charter, and this is something I think because it was voted on.
Yeah.
They always say, "Oh, well, it should be judicial." Okay, so the court decides. No, it should be the
voted on.
legislature. So the legislature decides. No, it needs to go to a vote of the people. Well, this one went to a vote. 75% of Dallas voters voted to
77.
add non-discrimination. 77% voted to add non-discrimination to the city charter. And it wasn't just that it passed. And it wasn't just that it passed by 77%. It's that it passed in every precinct except for, I think it was 8 precincts,
Yeah,
but it was 3 real distinct parts of the city. The precincts right around Dallas Baptist University, the precincts around Christ for the Nations Institute, and 1 precinct in southeast Dallas that's next to a trailer park in Balch Springs. That's it. It passed across Black South Dallas. It passed across Republican North Dallas. It passed across the city in every precinct except in a couple of trailer parks. In
And
the
it's
city.
and it's really cutting edge stuff too. It's not just sexual orientation, gender identity and expression. It's also genetic characteristics. It's also veteran status, marital status. All these things are included, and I think it's the biggest victory we've probably had in Texas. And yet it's like the right wing leaves us alone here in Dallas because they're way active in Plano. We saw them explode, their heads explode in Houston
Yeah, that's what I was
And
going to
San
say.
Antonio.
and San Antonio.
San Antonio, they failed to get that recall, but they targeted the councilman who brought it up. They targeted him actually worse in San Antonio than Anise got targeted in Houston.
That was a big story
they
of
lost.
the year, what happened in Houston.
Yeah, it's
Hero
huge.
is what it's called.
Yeah, Houston
Um,
equality. Oh, Houston
Houston Equal
Equal
Rights
Rights Ordinance. Yeah.
It passed, and then they did a petition, which turns out it was fraudulent. And so now it's in the courts. And do we know when the first hearings are coming?
They were postponed.
Yeah, so
and I forgot
that
when
was a
exactly.
big news item this year in Texas, anyway.
Well, and I think it's really interesting because they're about to do the same thing in Plano, trying to repeal that
It's
one.
the same people.
Yes, it is the same people, and it would be kind of offensive to see some people come into your town and try to
Right.
change it up. But what's really crazy about that petition is that they knew the rules. They knew
Right.
that they needed the right people. They had to be registered voters in Houston. All of these things, and everybody who signed the petition had to meet qualifications, and they just failed at that. And it's like they let them loose without telling them what to do or getting it right. And so they didn't have enough signatures, and so they're suing the city,
Suing the city.
because they screwed up.
Right.
Because the people doing the petition screwed up.
Well, the petition
insane.
in Plano, the church that you go to sign the petition is in Wiley.
Really?
Same thing.
Wow.
People from out of town going in and interfering in the city. And the difference is that, Plano's not as large a city, but it is becoming a major city. It's, city number 75th largest city in the country now, which, when I moved here, wasn't even on the radar.
It was a pasture.
It
It
was.
was out there, but it was a pasture.
But it's a
mostly.
big city. It's home for some major corporations. There's a major one that's moving in who isn't happy that its employees are going to lose their marriage licenses, their marriages when they move here. And Plano is trying to do something about it. And one thing I've been saying that I think has gotten lost in this, the mayor has turned out to be a huge ally, despite the watered-down resolution or ordinance that got passed. And he is somebody that I hope people from the different communities, the transgender community, the gay and lesbian community, I hope they keep communication open with him and talk with him about why there are deficits in this ordinance, because he's an ally.
Well, he certainly was eloquent. I think some of his statements rang hollow because the ordinance is not fully inclusive. But I think his heart's in the right place. I question whether the city staff is really there, or
He's somebody that the LGBT community can go to and talk to, though, and you'd rather have that than somebody that you can't go talk to.
Right.
I want to hear that some people in the community have scheduled appointments and gone to talk to him, because it is important.
And if in fact what you're saying is true, Patty, some of the staff's heart isn't in the right place, well, then that makes all the difference when you have a leader whose heart is.
That's
Yeah,
true.
he can help bring them there.
Absolutely.
One last thing on the list. Uganda's anti-gay law was struck down by their own courts.
And that Uganda story, that was my story. My favorite story of the year. I had some Ugandan residents of the area call me and say, is there anything you can do? The rest of the news media is ignoring us. And he said, you have to understand what's going on in Uganda. I said, I've been following it all along, and that's their kill the gays law that had worked its way through the parliament.
Going to get the death penalty if you're gay.
Museveni, the president of Uganda, was making a side trip from a UN visit. He was coming here to Dallas to make a presentation, bring in some money and investment into the country was the point of it. So I called up the Irving Convention Center. I also called up the Four Seasons Hotel. And I, with my interviewing style, I said, do you realize that you have a genocidal maniac who's going to be in your facility this weekend? Both of them canceled. Called up, so they moved him to the Gaylord Hotel and announced on their website that he'd be at the Gaylord Hotel. Called up the Gaylord Hotel. They called me back because I had already posted something online, and they called me and said, we can't arrange for him to be here that quickly because what it takes to put in a head of state, you need a whole floor basically that you can close off, not just for him but for security for other people in his entourage. And they said, we're fairly booked this weekend and we just couldn't do it. Apparently there was a third hotel involved also, and he ended up in a farm in Allen that they paid $70,000 for it in order for him to appear. And his final statement to them was, apparently gays and lesbians are very powerful here in Texas, which was my favorite. But the way the story ended was he said, we're going to, when we go home, we're going to show how homosexuals should be treated. When he got home, what he said was, for economic reasons, I'm dropping my support of this bill. So had a good ending. We don't know that that's the end yet, but hopefully that story had a good ending and that we didn't make things worse for people.
Right.
But while he was here, the United States also granted asylum to one of the organizers of the gay rights movement in Uganda. So.
And one more African story. Just this week, the U.S. removed Gambia from their trade agreement because of their extreme anti-gay laws.
Yeah, we were talking quickly while the next show was just setting up. They just walked in. So we have a minute or two more. Several other deaths. We mentioned Joan Rivers, but Meshack Taylor, who was Anthony on Designing Women, he passed away. He was straight.
He was a great.
He played gay in several roles. He was in Mannequin, played the flamboyant window dresser. Shirley Temple died. So Robin Williams, of course, and Alice from the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, that's right.
Died over the summer. Right. Other people who came out this year, aside from Jodie Foster again and Tim Cook, Robin Roberts finally came out.
She did.
Yeah.
Sam Champion, who had kind of been out, but he got married this year.
He did.
And he became the head of
the Weather Channel.
And in the movie The Interview, Eminem, who's so anti-gay, there's a piece of that movie where Eminem comes out.
Right.
Complete parody. And Marcus Bachman did not come out.
No, he did not.
He did not come out.
Not yet.
Anyway, for all of us here at Lambda Weekly, have a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Be back next week.
KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.